Good evening. Welcome to the February 12th meeting of Economic Development Commission. Call the meeting to order at 6:01. Being in our agenda, I'd like to welcome our newest members to Economic Development Commission, Shona, Bob, and Terry. If you would take a minute and introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Shona Squara. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to my time here. I've been in Woodbridge for about 3.5 years now. Have 3 kids, 1 in middle school, 2 at Beecher. Next year we'll have 1 in every school. Career-wise, professionally, I've had 20 years or so of marketing experience. That's my area of expertise. It's kind of come from large consumer packaged goods companies, so Kraft, Bayer, Nestle, and currently at Henkel, so big Connecticut employer based out of Stamford. So very excited to start working with you guys, and a lot of opportunity for our little home in Woodbridge. So I think there's a lot of potential here, so I appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Bob Hill. I've lived in Woodbridge since 1998. 3 children, all gone through the school system. They're out of the house now. Spent most of my life in the franchise, real estate, and operations area. Started off at Dunkin' Donuts in very early days and worked my way up. I ended up being a director of development operations for a 7-state area that had no growth in 15 years. In 3 years' time, we doubled the size of the area and doubled the franchisee profitability, strategically approached how to make that happen with them by developing their coffee program at that time. Did some other franchise concepts, some turnaround, startup, and did actually for a good number of years when I first moved here to Woodbridge, work for a company called Praetorian Group. We did the resales of existing franchise businesses for a lot of large franchisors. We actually were responsible for selling about 1,500 of the Hardee's restaurants to franchisees, basically cutting up the territories, committing those franchisees to remodels, development, and that type of thing. So we really, not only we were their brokers, we were really strategic partners in developing their plans for when they move forward with that. But we also handled not only single units and that type of thing too. Through that, I was actually recruited by 2 different clients of mine, one of which was actually located here in Woodbridge, to Visiting Angels. They had 2 offices at the time, grew that out to 4 locations, basically increased the valuation of their business in a 2-year period of time, 60% for an industry that I was not overly familiar with, but learned it very quickly. And I think from having spent time selling businesses, you learn them very quickly and understood the formula to make it grow. Actually ran it during the pandemic, which was a very stressful time, but actually maintained the business during that time, which was, quite of an accomplishment in that way. Most recently, it was a client that I actually worked with from a consulting standpoint that I had actually met through serving on the baseball board. They'd asked me to look at some of their locations that some did well, some didn't do as well, which is the Eli's Restaurant Group. Okay? And I did some work with them about 10 years ago. And then about 4 years ago, they asked me to start helping them again in growing the Illicit Brewing Company concept. Okay? They have 1 location in Manchester, opened up 6 years ago. And I assisted them in finding the location in Fairfield that we opened up 2 years ago, which is gangbusters. The president of the Chamber of Commerce there basically said, we got the Economic Impact Award, basically said it was like a meteor had landed in Fairfield when we opened there. From there, we also opened last July in Danbury, and so that's really just got started. But I had actually completed the entire market plan for the development of the concept throughout New England. About 1.5 years ago, I was asked to take over restaurant operations for them, which is something I did a long time ago. So I did it for about 1.5 years, and I think my wife was starting to lose her sense of humor about me getting home at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I said, something, guys, I'll go back to doing the development thing. And so I basically stepped back from that part of it and said, look, I'll go back to being a consultant for you in that way. So I did that about a month ago. And so that kind of freed me up to do this. And I'm excited to be here. I have shared over the years different perspectives on terms of our business district and some of the components. There are a number of things around those components that we have some pieces. There's a number of pieces that are being worked on between the beautification, which is one element of it. I listened to the last meeting. I think the mixed use and some of the things with the housing will also help. But there's another piece here which maybe some of your contacts will be helpful, because we need some employment generation to get more people, because there's only really 6 reasons that someone would ever come to Woodbridge that don't live in Woodbridge to frequent businesses, and we need to have more of a draw to get people to want to come here. So I spent some time with, I was pleased, about 2 weeks ago, Mika and I sat and we had a 30-minute meeting that went an hour and a half talking about these concepts, and I'm really excited to work with all of you and learn a little bit about what you've already done and where this is going, and seeing where I can help contribute to this cause. So.
Yes. Hi, I'm Terry Schatz. I've been in Woodbridge since, I think, 2000 we moved here. 3 different homes. We keep moving around. And I also have 3 kids. I guess that's the theme with the new members. One graduated UConn this year. One's at Northeastern and one's at Amity, and has Rick for a teacher. And I own a business. My headquarters are technically on Bradley Road in Woodbridge. I do human resources consulting. I have a bunch of consultants that work for me. We help clients with pretty much anything employment law related, performance management, compensation plan design, hiring and firing. And I have a lot of businesses that I work with in Connecticut and outside of Connecticut, and primarily they're smaller, under 100 employees. And you know, it's been great working with different industries. I have a lot of nonprofits, private sector, and kind of, you know, using my years of experience when I was corporate to apply it now as consulting. And from the town perspective, I've been on, let's see, I started on QPOP, then I was Board of Selectmen for 2 years, then I was on Personnel, I'm currently on Ethics. I was on 2030. We just dissolved it in December and kind of tied my experience with the latest project at 2030, focusing on developing the grand list and kind of partnering with EDC. So we've had some joint meetings together, and you know, it kind of made sense for us to dissolve and kind of you know, pass the baton back to EDC on business development with the respect of, you know, the grand list. And I also built Pease Place on Pease Road with another member of the community.
Thank you. And your time and experience with 2030 is what we're looking for, to get some kind of continuity along with the grants and our connectivity project. So thank you, and welcome to everybody. All right. Yes, Mika.
I just wanted to also welcome the 3 new members. I'm very excited and very pleased, particularly with their qualifications and their commitments that they've shown, not only in terms of their careers, but also toward the town. And very happy that you're here. And looking forward, I think only Sherry's missing today, correct?
Correct.
So, and I also, if you'd indulge me, only because I don't, rather than wait until the end of the meeting for the new business portion, where I usually would make comment, I just wanted to ask the commission to consider including specifically the charge that we talked about a couple of months ago as far as the business district is concerned. Obviously, as we've talked about, we'd like to put a significant focus on the business district, in particular as relates to zoning, and to see if we can develop, with the assistance of our town planner, zoning regulations that we can submit to DPZ as a deliverable, that would help us in terms of enhancing and improving that area. So So I'm hopeful that on your agendas going forward that they will include that. And I also did want to mention to you, to this commission, as well as other commissions that I'll be speaking with, that we would like you to come in front of the Board of Selectmen over the course of the next couple of months and just give a report in terms of what you've been involved in, what your action items are for the coming year. Obviously, it would be the chair, vice chair, who we would expect, but however you feel is best that you want to do it. And I'm sorry to take all your time with that, but I did want to, and I'm hopeful that you'll allow me to go from here, and I'll watch and listen, if not for the whole thing, for again a little later on.
Certainly. Thank you very much. And we
Or
plan
if
in my
anyone has any questions for me, I'm glad to answer anything before I do go.
Mika, in my chair update, I have a couple notes with regards to the zoning change, and I hope to have an opportunity in the next week or so with you and the planner to get a little guidance as for directional purposes, and then bring everything back to the commission in March. I also spoke with Chris Sullivan. She's happy to come and speak with us, answer any questions that we might have with regards to current zoning and potential for making those changes and recommendations.
Thank you, Cliff. I appreciate it.
Certainly.
Folks, thank you very much. Welcome, and I'm very much looking forward to working with everyone. And I'm available for anyone. Should you have any questions or anything that you would like to discuss, please reach out to me.
Great. Thank you. Feel better.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Moving on with our agenda to item number 3, election of a vice chair. This will be for the next year, as the chair people are voted every second year. So with that, we'd entertain a nomination for the vice chair. I would nominate Chatty.
Second.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Nope, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, thank you. The item number 4 is voting to accept our minutes from December the 11th EDC meeting. Entertain a motion.
I so move. Okay. I so move.
Rick? Chatty? Any discussion? Changes, corrections? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Item number 5 is referring to the tourism representative for the Central Regional Tourism District. These folks reached out to us. Each of the 65 towns within the Central Region Tourism District appoints a representative from the town to serve on the board for the district. They can be a person from economic development or someone from the Chamber of Commerce, tourism-related field, or anyone that they see fit. This organization holds 4 quarterly meetings and 1 annual meeting in which the representatives are invited to attend. Throughout the year, they publish and update 18-plus brochures highlighting attractions, locations throughout the region, and we ask that they help, they meaning the representatives, help update by providing new locations within their towns. They also have a very popular Beertopia brochure highlighting breweries throughout the region and ask to send over new breweries when they're open or we have more information. They work in collaboration with the town districts to create social media campaigns, repost town events, and so on. So we were looking to see if anybody would have interest in volunteering to serve on that board. They did not give any information about times of day or anything such as that when they hold these quarterly meetings, so I know a lot of us are tied up at work, we can't necessarily get to things, but
I'm happy to do it.
okay. Bob, thank you very much.
happy to be your backup or fill-in if I can make it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Main Street, item number 6, an update there. We plan on scheduling a meeting of the steering committee. Connecticut Main Street Group, for if you're not familiar, is an organization which the town has partnered with to help look at the business district in our quote-unquote Main Street to see where we're heading. We did an initial assessment with them this past year, and we have a number of the action items that we were given that we're currently working on. 2030, actually, a lot of work that you were doing plays right into the Connecticut Main Street assessment. So with that, we're going to be looking for some folks, especially someone with marketing background, to help us with that steering committee. So thank you very much. You volunteered.
You take tourism, I'll take the work. So they have, was that part of what was discussed in December? Because I did listen in on that. and also the
Yeah, some
minutes
of it
from that.
was.
So they have provided us with input, or?
They have. So they do an assessment that we sat with representatives from Connecticut Main Street Center for about 4 hours. And we went through item by item of where we are with regards to information that the town currently has. For instance, what are your vacancies within commercial districts? What kind of parking do you have? What type of marketing do you have? What type of signage do you have? And all of these items get put into their system, and they give you a number. And while our number was certainly not where we want it to be, for a starting point, they were pleased with where we were. We were about 49%. So they want you to see each year they'll come back and do a reassessment. The cost is $750 a year to have this as an opportunity to join them. They have a lot of information online. They've got a lot of different programs. It's one of the things I'm going to mention next, that they hold placemaking studies, seminars and so forth that folks can attend should they have the time. And it looks at things kind of holistically, which is not just looking at dollars and cents. So I think it's an important, and for, like I say, for $750, they're providing a great service to us.
Cool.
Cliff, 2 questions.
Mhm.
You mentioned 4 criteria. They look at the vacancy, the parking, the signage. There was one other.
That was just a number of,
Okay.
a couple of them. I could certainly give you a copy of the report.
That's what was my next
Probably head
question.
count,
Yep.
employees.
I think it's on the PowerPoint presentation that they used when they came to us.
It's on their
We should
website.
submit it in our agenda. It should be on the website. And if you go to like the town committees, if it's not under EDC, it might be under 2030. There was like a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, that's perfect.
I'll send you, everybody, the report again, so we all have it and can refresh.
I'm excited. Good.
I think there were 88 points that they looked at.
Yeah, 85 or 88, and it looked at everything. And, some of the things we're kind of sitting there staring at each other, Mika, myself, Chris Dickerson, and we're trying to come up with an answer. And I had asked this fellow, Carl Rosa, who's one of their development fellows, that I said, give me some information ahead of time so I can, nope, that's not how we do it. We want you to be able to kind of answer these questions as we're throwing them at you, and you should be able to do it, in a manner that the information, if it's not readily available, it should be. And I think it was interesting from my standpoint to sit there and say, okay, well, we've got to think about this. And they also came and we did a walkthrough of the business district with them, and they pointed out several different things. Well, you could consider this here, you can consider this here. They were excited about the connectivity and LATSIP grant and work that's being done there, because it all kind of ties into this assessment. And you can take from it what you want, but I think that from a starting point, it was very beneficial. With that, with Main Street, on March 12th at the Bushnell, they're holding a Main Street Summit, building a Main Street business ecosystem. And they're having 3 case studies. Got a number of different folks that are speaking. There's Christopher Allen, who's the founder and CEO of Gas Burgers, entrepreneur. There's somebody from Goldman and York, economic development vice president. And also Rory McGloin, who is associate director of entrepreneurial communication for UConn. So we'll send this information out to everybody if you're interested.
Sorry, what was that date again?
March 12th.
It's the same as date as our next meeting, I think, right?
That's
Actually,
correct.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is from 8 to 1. The last one they had was in New Haven. It was easy to get to. And the same thing, 8 to 1. Then the break, have lunch, and you're on your way. But it was pretty interesting, some of the information they provide. Okay. For some informational updates, Amity Chamber of Commerce had its Health and Fitness Expo that was on January 10th. Barry said it was very well attended. A number of businesses from Woodbridge participated. Back, let's see, what was the date? Tuesday, February 3rd was Connecticut Department of Transportation conducted an informational meeting about Route 15 and Exit 46, or the old Exit 59 improvements. That information is all online. They're talking about installation of an acceleration and deceleration lane at Exit 46 to improve safety, mobility, connectivity on Route 15, and immediate connections to Route 69. There's going to be some changes to how you get on the highway, where you get on the highway, where you get off the highway, and so on. The construction is anticipated to begin spring of '28, based on availability of funding, acquisition of right-of-way, and so on. They gave us $90 million as a budget that they're looking at for estimated construction costs. There's some more information, happy to send it, but everybody should have received that notice from the town about this meeting. If you haven't, certainly can send it out again, but it will be online as well. You can watch
It's
it.
also on the CTDOT webpage,
Mhm.
so that and the Heroes Project as well. They have their own page, so you could go in and, you know, just read about the project plan and things of that nature.
Sitting and listening to them in a Zoom call, this was back in December, thinking about that intersection and the number of vehicles that come through, and of course the congestion that's there every day, will obviously affect the homeowners there as well as the businesses, and they're looking to try and reduce some of the traffic congestion by opening up these other lanes of travel. So hopefully it will improve, because if you drive down that way in the morning, which I try not to, but once in a while I have to do, it you could be backed up to Bradley Road or beyond. So we shall see. Yesterday was the monthly Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Committee Zoom meeting. They had a speaker who was Celia Mascaro Bruno, who was the Commissioner of Housing for the state. She gave some updates with regards to the housing bill. I had to jump off of that call, but Scott was on it, and Scott is going to give us kind of a recap.
Sure. DOH, Selah had Mike Santora and Ben Lovejoy on the call with her. Currently, I don't know if you've heard in the news, but there was a veto of a House bill that got reincarnated as HB 8002. So I think everybody in the consulting culture of the world is out there talking about it and holding seminars on what it means and what it's about. And so Selah was there from the Department of Housing for the state to talk about that. And ours truly, Dale Croup, put a lot of the towns in the SCROG on the hot seat and asked us to say, so how's it going with creating housing in your town? I'm sure it's not controversial. And I said, no, we're not having the same problems that West Haven's having, or we're not having the same problems that other towns are having, but Guilford was on and the other towns. You know, and I asked the question, and I didn't want to step on Cliff's toes, and so, but I asked the question, how can an EDC, you know, help? And one of the things that came up with, you know, and it's really hard at some points. I've been toiling in this field for a number of years since I retired, not because I'm in housing, but because I wanted something to do and to get my teeth around. But it's understanding that housing is economic development. And so that was in that meeting, whether it was Fontana at West Haven or whether it was some of these others, that was the conversation and the resistance those communities were getting. So I didn't talk about that at all. I just tried to be active and not say we're experiencing that problem. And I asked Selah, how can, you know, what can we do? And she said, work with us. I don't think, this is my take on it, it's just my perspective of listening to it. I don't know that DOH is so involved in House Bill. I don't know that they're the ones that are really, you know, the champion of that bill and how to create housing. I think they have a different mission a little bit, and that's, when you get into this weeds, you'll understand that. But she said, call us. We have programs for home ownership. We have down payment assistance. So in your business districts as an economic development, you can promote ownership. You can get subsidies. You can get, for housing, you can get down payment assistance for home ownership, and we have those programs. So reach out to us. So they mentioned some names of some organizations. And a lot of us don't know, but I've toiled in this field for a long time, and those organizations, a lot of those leaders live in our town. So she's mentioning organizations that we have the resources in our town. We've just never said, hi, can you help us get down payment assistance? Because the organizations she's mentioning, the people that run them are here. So that struck me, and that was my takeaway. And so hopefully we'll follow her advice, and we'll reach out to them and reach out to the people in our town that are on those organizations. So that was my thing. And a little bit of a soapbox, too.
Thank you, sir. Another item that we mentioned in the past was Business Retention Committee, which we're going to bring back with Dale. We're going to hopefully, speaking with him, having a Zoom meeting to kind of get everybody up to speed on where we are with our business retention program. And we're trying to get out to visit, along with Mika, visit some of the businesses in town. We have, you know, called that we're going to try and hit a certain number of them per quarter, and we're right now going out and doing a lot of new business touches. You know, it's a little bit further in the agenda, but Tony is phenomenal with folks that are coming into town hall, and they're either opening businesses or making some changes, and they're communicating to her, and she communicates with us, as well as the Amity Chamber of Commerce, to try and have grand openings and basically get up to speed on where we are and where we're heading with some of these new businesses in town. So more to come on that. As far as the budget, sat on the 22nd in front of Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, presented our budget. Number of questions that were asked. We actually had a small reduction in our dollars based on where we were, and the question was, you know, going forward with some of these plans for the business district, do you need more for marketing? Do you need more for this? And luckily, another option that we have is looking at some grants through Main Street for just that. So I felt as though, in speaking with them, kind of a one-off, they want to help a town that is moving in a certain direction, and they're happy with the progress that we've made, even though it's incremental. But they feel as though, you know, would be a prime applicant for some of their grants.
Cliff, did you say the Board of Selectmen reduced our budget?
It hasn't. I reduced from where we were. Of course, last year we were asking for a enormous increase, which we didn't get, which especially for that pop-up program. We had looked into bringing in a pop-up business down along Amity Road, and it was a rather large investment, $40,000, which it certainly didn't go anywhere. But we reduced it on our printing, so nothing really out of the ordinary. Beyond that, we briefly spoke with Mika before. In the next week or two, hope to have an opportunity to speak with the planner and Mika to look at their recommendations for how we present our recommendations for any zoning changes, especially to mixed use, to the town planning and zoning, and what's the best route to go. I mentioned Chris Sullivan said she's happy to attend, sit with us, answer any questions with regards to the current zoning and what we have in place already for some of this, and or some changes that could be made. So I think that once we have that next meeting, that'll be on our agenda, and we can, kind of take the bull by the horns on that and move down the road that we all need to see, especially within the business district, to promote that.
So is there a process already, and we're looking for like a new process, or it's just, like, how do we currently make recommendations to TPC?
Since I've been on economic development, we have not made any recommendations,
Okay.
and I don't know when the last recommendation may have been made.
Yeah,
I'm gonna play the new card.
No,
I'm
no,
asking
no,
dumb
and I
questions.
think
I don't
that's
care.
helpful, because
Yeah.
I brought with me, if you want,
Please.
I mean, I think it's a great question, and I brought the recommendation, I got it from TPZ, and it's the latest, at least when I asked for it, what the planner has, have we all seen what the planner's recommended to the TPC for the zoning changes? I thought it would be decent to hand out.
I think
We
it
don't
would.
have the benefit, I made purposely, I didn't review it because, I'm not coming with any agenda or anything, but I just thought, we need to get current on this, because this is happening in real live time.
Well, our interests
Yeah.
intersect.
I would
So
like
do you
to
want,
review that.
would you
I
like
would
me
absolutely
to?
like a copy.
And now, and again, Mike's, the planner's not here to give the words about it, but it's what he presented to the TPZ, so we can play along.
Can we digest it, or?
Well, some things, I was just looking when we just started, but to your question, Sean, I'm thinking, look how many, if you just look at it, look how many cites to Connecticut general statutes, zoning regulations, terms of art, that unless you're in the housing field, right, you're not probably aware of what some of these things mean. This is like inclusionary zoning. What is inclusionary zoning? And I think we need to put together a smaller working group of people that want to get quickly up to speed, because we're under the gun now, and we've got to get some sort of review for the whole committee to see, but I'm thinking a working group, a smaller subcommittee working group. Last meeting I suggested that we have, a development authority, but that's gonna be too heavy a lift, but I don't know that we can do that, unless we're all gonna start to sit down here and start to say, what does this mean? And what does the word inclusionary zoning mean? And what is our goal? And what does it mean to be deed restricted on
Right.
housing units? And where then do we wanna cite them? And Mika wants us to focus in the business district, and not to disagree with that, because it's economic development, but housing is economic development. So I think we also have to think about it more broadly, lest we got to put together, and the reason we got to do that is because we're going to get a number, and nobody's talked about what the size of that number is going to be. That number was 332 deed restricted units under 5002. And what does that mean for the town of Woodbridge? And how do we get there? I think you have to think about that when you think of the changes for the flats. I grew up in this town when that was a farm, and when that, changed. And I think we need to start thinking about what this number means and what we should do, because I don't know that the set-aside zone that, anyway, I'll stop there, but I just think a working group that, like, for instance, there's two ways to get affordable housing. There's set-asides, right? There's inclusionary zoning, And then there's assisted. Assisted is when the state gives us money for the capital stack, right? That's when you have completely 100% affordable. Then the other way to do it is have the market do it and set aside some of those. Have a zone where you say, if you're gonna build it, include some of those units. You sort of need a mix of both. I don't know that you're gonna hit your full number by just doing one or the other. And so those kinds of discussions are gonna play into the siting and all that. And we haven't really started to get those definitions out on the table as saying, are we really looking for assisted housing? 100% affordable, bring in LISC and all those, or some of that, but we also want to make sure that we get a good housing stock for our economic development that's inclusionary. And so,
I guess that was my question, like, again, if it's not for right now, we can say, sure, we'll take it offline, if that's fine, but, one of my questions was, how do we work together, or is there a way, what is the intersection between ourselves and other committees, that one in particular, so that we're informed of what each other's doing and we're moving in towards a common shared direction. And do we know what that common shared direction or goal is? And then, or so that we're not just kind of, I wouldn't say spinning our wheels, but we need to, I come from a corporate world, everybody's got to work towards the same goal, right?
There are, I spoke with somebody from conservation, and they're interested in, kind of collaborating and coming together, just to your point, bringing this group together, come to some type of consensus to push it through, and then hopefully, we can see some movement on this.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to your point of starting with a smaller group just to fully understand even just some of the terminology is a starting point. And if we can get that and then start working with these others, I can see Tamika's charge to us to do this in a short term. I mean, I'm talking 6 months or less. We should be able to come up with some type of solid recommendation. And in the 2023 master plan for that district that 2030 had worked with, they kind of, it's online, I'll send it to everybody as well. It kind of outlines some of the ideas that were there. Scott's mentioned that some of these ideas have been recycled over and over, going back 10
this is
plus
not
years.
new. This has been
I'm
rejected
sure.
every
Yeah.
decade.
Yeah, so sorry if I'm asking naive questions.
And I'm not saying it shouldn't have been rejected. I mean, I'm quite sympathetic to loading up some housing in particular areas and so forth. So in the siting, I'm quite sympathetic to it. Having watched the past every 10 years as a POCD, every 10 years they come out and say we want to do a placemaking study, we want to do a village district. Every 10 years we've done that, and it's not gotten done. So now, is it going to get done this time? Well, there's some push with House Bill. We're going to have to hit an affordable housing goal. And the question is, where do we put 332 or whatever the number comes with? But I think we got to start thinking about that number rather than fighting the number. And we got to say, because I could get into the weeds on Echo West study, and I could get into all the weeds on this and how it's going to come down. But we're going to need people that want to get in the weeds on this so we can plan properly. That's my opinion. And so we need to start talking that how do we get 332 affordable units? What does it mean to be an affordable unit? What are the two kinds, assisted, right, or set aside? How do we want to see that? Do we want to just have, mixed income developments, which would, and how do we get there? How do we incentivize developers to be able to build mixed developers? How do we contribute to the capital stack? All those things. I don't think we're going to be able to put people that don't have experience in those groups. They're not going to get up to speed fast enough, and that's why I think a municipal development agency would be great. We could put people on it from the outside as well as the inside, but I think if we're going to do this, we're going to have to really want to sit down and start to pick this apart and say, what does that mean, and are we going to get here from an economic development place with ADUs? Are we really going to get there with ADUs for economic development? Are we going to get there for our housing goals? And then, what are we saying for our economic development goals?
So, just a couple thoughts, and thank you for this, Scott. Just some thoughts, listen to everything that's happening. I know one of the things kind of interesting, at one point in time, some of the ADUs in Woodbridge were not permitted, but now they aren't. And so there's a number out there that we need to get people that have them to say, hey, I got one, because it's okay now, okay? That'll help a little bit. There's no one, waiver one, and it all goes away kind of thing. And I do see us being supportive of trying to move this along as part of what we do, similar to like when you deal with what's COOPOP's responsibility and what's conservation, but one has more primary responsibility over something, but the other has to have input, and we all work together. I think that one of the things would be helpful to us in terms of seeing what those zoning changes that were discussed, I think in 2030, and those layouts, but then also hearing the town planners' thoughts to us. That'll put us in a better position to say, okay, we want to recommend this to TP&Z because we endorse it too, and it also includes this too, and that way when we move forward and we start reaching out to developers to assist us in whatever way, okay, the the business district needs to be grown. We know what's permitted to be done, but right now, some of our zoning in that area, and I'll just give you an example where, a small example where our zoning is off, and there's probably a lot of these little ones. Some years ago, I sat in a TP&Z meeting, and I don't know the reason why I was there that night, but there happened to be, the fellow was making his application for a convenience store and gas station where the Phillips 66 is. So, probably, I don't know if you are aware of this, that if you operate a gas station in Woodbridge, you can only have 33% of your footprint being convenience. Now, I understand how that evolved, because in the early days of gas stations being converted to gas station convenience stores, they weren't done very nicely. It's just like the 2 bays were still there and there's convenience in there. So a lot of towns developed zoning basically to prevent that kind of thing from happening. As time has evolved, and when I was involved with selling businesses, I came to the recognition that most gas stations today do not have service bays. Okay, they don't have a local mechanic. So what do they do with the rest of the space? Okay, their only alternative really is similar to like what Cumberland Farms, Wawa, Sheets, and places like that do, where they build beautiful places that aren't what was envisioned there. So the guy brings his application in, and when he presents it, it's like, well, it couldn't get permitted because it didn't meet the zoning requirement. And it was kind of silly, and someone on the board said, well, it should be a restaurant. Well, actually, it shouldn't. It's really tough to get in and out. It's not really ideal for that. But a gas station there with convenience there, pulling people off the highway helps, because if you had signage on the road, hey, there's a gas station ahead, you come off the highway, okay, now maybe you'll hit some of the other businesses while you come off the highway. So the guy was pretty smart. So he got shot down, so he comes back a meeting or two later, and he's got 2 applications. Okay? He's got an application for a convenience store. And the adjacent property, he's got an application for a gas station with a booth out there that someone's going to sit in that booth. Okay? And both got permitted. Now, I go to that gas station often. I've yet to ever see someone sit in that booth. So technically he's in violation, but that was silly zoning on our part, okay? We should have recognized how things change. And I'll bet you as we go through the zoning, we look at a number of things that are just logical to what we do. Some things do need to be changed. I mean, if you look at what was the trailer business there, that probably could have been Cumberland Farms, okay? But because of our zoning, they passed, okay? So I just, it ties into everything we're doing, and it's everything we're doing. There's not one solution to being able to resolve our business district, but there's a lot of pieces we need to put together. The mixed use, yeah, definitely we need to have mixed use. We need to have, I hear that you work for some very large employers. We need to be able to put together a dog and pony show once the beautification project happens, that we can be able to attract some larger businesses
You're
with,
referring beautifications, the LOSIT?
what's that?
The LOSIT grant
Yeah.
is
Yes,
beautification?
Yeah. That'll help, make some business like, hey, that's a nice place to be, and that, it's not gonna be the solution to our business district, it's only gonna make it more attractive for
Well, maybe
people.
we could ask Terry, what were you contemplating when you were doing 2030 and and getting a $9 million beautification grant? What were you beautifying? What was your zoning thoughts there down there in the flats? Because
Well, we didn't go so far as, do anything with zoning. We didn't have a joint meeting with TPC or anything. Ours was more like in theory, but the idea was, our kind of charge was to grow the grand list. We need
Yeah.
to get businesses in. We have a lot of vacant properties. We have a lot of issues with traffic, and specifically Amity Road, 63 and 69 were like the two main roads that we were studying. We looked at the traffic, we looked at the accidents, we looked at speed at which cars go by, and the ability to stop on those roads to actually visit some of the vendors, the companies. And it's really hard because when you're, cutting through to get onto the Merritt or to go down to New Haven, where a lot of people work, people don't really stop there and they just kind of fly through. So one of the things that came out in that study was narrowing the road, because when you do that, you automatically slow traffic down. And that in turn, having a slower speed will help businesses get, potentially more visitors, because it's easier to stop and pull into a lot or a parking lot. We looked at other towns comparable to Woodbridge. We went up to Suffield. They had kind of a similar infrastructure before, I think it was Main Street USA, before they got a grant that allowed them to help with some of these things like signage, street lights, curb appeal, but also the ability to redesign the footprint on some of the buildings. So like the parking lots, to make them more accessible to come to off of a main road, so to speak, like 63 and 69. And then obviously the whole connectivity, which is what kind of spurred that on. And then, there were some other things that came out as a result of us kind of doing that study, which was flooding, why businesses didn't go into certain parts of the business district. Flooding was a problem. Then they went back to DOT. They found out that we had a lot of infrastructure issues. Thankfully, the DOT had to fix, because they own our underground pipes. So they were clogged down there. They have since kind of flushed them out, and that helped. So, potentially if we invest in that area, it's kind of like the thought was, if you build it, they will come. It's the streets aren't connected easily. There's not a lot of flow around there. It's very kind of compartmentalized. So, we talked about ways to try and connect all the different streets, even kind of going through Crest and creating another side street parallel to Lucy. All these things were kind of, talked about in theory. Again, a lot of it does kind of depend on, TPZ and EDC and conservation and other committees and giving their blessing. But these were some of the things that we talked about, with the goal of not so much bringing in more housing, but we did talk about mixed use with businesses and housing in that area. But the goal was really to try and attract businesses.
have we had those discussions with the community in that area about, I don't know if it's build it, they'll come. If you zone for it, they'll come. So did you do any sort of what they wanted to see in the zoning? In terms of right now, I did notice that, and the House bill is important. There's going to be as of right 2 to 9 units down there. Did you get any feedback on that? Because I think that's so important, that the community has to want to really embrace this and not have it foisted so much. Or we got to be aware of that when we're thinking about how we do economic development, because that may turn out to be not the place. It's a very compact area. BI is a zone with about 10 acres is all. And so if you're thinking of, 2 to 9 units per acre on 10 acres, you're not going to have this big marketing play for a lot of residents down there and workforce to feed all these businesses that are desperate for workforce with that small a density and that compact an area. It might be good for the community, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be done that way with that low density, but we then got to think about where do we do our economic development for siting and how do we do it, and there may be other ways to do it. And I would love to know what that community has to say about some of the things I'm hearing about. We got to focus all the housing and what kind of housing in that community without getting the feedback from the community.
Yeah, so we actually had several community events. NEBCO was generous enough to let us use their venue for the first one that we did. And then the second one was most recently at Crest. Might have been the third. I can't think if there was. No, maybe the third. I think I missed one, but might have been like a smaller joint commission. But so the 2 community outings that we did for 2030 specifically, we got great feedback from, I would say most of the people that attended did either live or own a business in the business district. We got a lot of interest in supermarket or some kind of market. People wanted to see more restaurants and food options. They also felt like we focused too much on, I forgot, I can probably get, if it's on our website, like the report that came afterwards. But it was really interesting because people came out, people wanted to say, Peary Associates presented some beautiful sketches and drafts of like what it could look like if we did invest in kind of making the area a little more homogeneous so that the buildings kind of tied to each other with a combination of like brick and wood, building on what we currently have, but also kind of making it a little more uniform down there. So it's not like the Selden Plaza looks like this and then the People's Bank, Lucy Street has like this kind of development. So there was a lot of like sketches that the town got to see, and we told everybody, we're like, listen, this is just in theory, we just want to get your input. But they were overall pretty excited about it.
Do you think it's a big change from 10 years ago then?
I couldn't tell you because I wasn't involved 10 years ago. I was.
When I watched, it was very similar stuff. Very, very TPZ Village District, the storyboards, that very, and then the question was, how do we get to the mixed? It's always been on the POCD, right? How do we get mixed use zoning, right? It's always been on the POCD every 10 years.
Yeah, I think the challenge
it's here again.
Right.
But how do is it if it didn't get done then? How do we approach that to make sure that we're putting our finger on that pulse? And when there could be other things that we got to think about in light of the fact that we got to hit a pretty big number, and we got to do that thoughtfully.
Yeah, right. And I think to your point, like 10 years ago, the economic outlook looked a little bit different too. So the ability to apply for certain grants was a factor. I know even when I was on the board, like the ability to apply for some grants back then, pre-COVID, was an option that we might not have seen otherwise, right? So, and then also just the committees themselves. Having an active committee makes such a difference because you can come up with great ideas in theory, but if nobody's willing to like show up and do the work or even, come to the meeting so we have a quorum to vote on things, it makes things hard to get done. So I do think that we should be getting more involved with TPZ and conservation and other committees to try and not thwart any efforts. My opinion.
I'd be most interested in the planner coming in and presenting some of his ideas, and that, I've approved over the years and reviewed thousands of sites for commercial development. And there's a little rule of thumb that I use, a three-legged stool, okay? There's demographics, okay? The number of people, the income levels, whatever the concept is that you're trying to develop, okay? You know, the demographics for Little Caesars has a lot more flexibility in terms of the demographics, in terms of income, okay, than, say, Shake Shack or whatever happens to be, okay? So you've got what the demographics are from an income standpoint, but also, you know, what is their discretionary income? How many people are there? Then there's the traffic part of it, okay? How many cars go past? And when they go past, you know, you could have 100,000 cars go past a day, but if they're going 60 miles an hour, you're not going to stop them. So it kind of goes to the point of like, okay, you know, can you access the site? And then the third component, which is the one that most people don't think about much, which is the activity generation in a particular area. That could be employment generation. It could be a hospital, an office building. And the difficulty we face, and I'll say this a number of times over time, you'll hear me say this a lot. Right now, and because I was asked many times in the past with different businesses I've worked with, can't you get them to come to Woodbridge? I said, it's not strong enough. It's not going to be strong enough to support their business. So there's not enough people, okay? And as much as, yes, the housing will help some, it's not going to be the end all to those businesses. We need, when you think about it, visualize this. There's only 6 reasons that you would come to Woodbridge if you don't live here, okay? Now think about it. Katz's Deli, okay? It's not a great draw, it's a draw, okay? The old soccer place back on Bradley Road, okay? The JCC.
I can speak to that, and I will, because
Okay.
I'm very intimately involved with that soccer organization, and I will tell you that, I don't know if all your guys'
I'm first
know it,
generation there.
So,
but the hundreds of people who
Yeah.
come from other towns there with siblings and are waiting for hours and
Yeah.
desperate for snacks and food should
Yeah.
not be discounted.
Yeah.
These people
No,
will pay
I'm saying-
anything for
I'm
something to
I'm
eat.
counting them as one of the 6,
Okay.
okay? So you,
Sorry, yeah.
yeah, they're one of the ones on the list, okay? The bowling alley, the JCC, I may have lost track of, I guess you could say the bike shop, but it's not that frequent. Crest, which, you know, how often do you go for a car, get tuned up, and the golf course. So we don't have enough major draws. And many years ago, before Toll Brothers built their units there, one of the things, and it's funny you mentioned the supermarket thing, when Jim Urbano built his shopping center there, okay, he built the ancillary stores. But if you, most areas, in order to support the ancillary stores, you've got to have usually the big box or whatever the big draw that goes, whether it's Target or whatever it happens to be. Obviously, we probably don't want that kind of thing.
We
But
can't, we don't have any land. have
Right,
10
we
stations.
don't, exactly. We did at that time. We did at that time, okay? You know, but, you know, there are some concepts that can help draw people, and we need to be, I think one of the other things is we need to look at, I mean, the grand list right now, obviously, that's been developed, and yes, we have closed businesses and that type of thing. Yes, those people are paying real estate taxes, but we're not getting the excise tax on the equipment if there was an operating business there. We do need to look, I think, geographically in that region and wherever else, where additional buildings for whatever a big, you know, an employment generator could go, because that really, you know, is going to move the needle on the grand list in that way. So just share those perspectives, and it's, like I said, it's not all, I mean, the beautification thing and everything that's happening with that all help, okay? Having mixed use definitely will help, but there's more to this, and if we're going to attract small businesses that will survive and not, we don't have the turnover. I mean, how many times has the Woodbridge Social turned over? I mean, how many businesses has that been, okay? You know, so. Anyway.
Yeah, there's not. Yeah, I agree. And I don't know that that's going to cure our grand list problem.
No.
You know, a small, little, very compact village district, I don't know that that's going to cure our grand list problem. And
Right.
it may not, it certainly may not, with the community feedback for, you know, doing what the people want for siting, you know, that's important. And I'm very sensitive to that, being a young boy growing up here, going to Beecher Road School and being a graduate and sending my kids here, and I'm very sensitive to that. When it was a farm and its history, and so I think we got to think a little bit broader than just a very compact area. I mean, to improve the grand list. And
Yep.
so,
We've got to work cut out for us.
yeah. But do we have anything, Cliff, that, to Shona's point, is like, how are we gonna get there to a recommendation? That's gotta come, from what I understand, March is the deadline probably. So the TPZ planner, right, is gonna be submitting drafts of zoning regulations. Probably by March, you gotta go to SCROG, this has to come in July 1. Not all of it, but, I think we need to provide input, certainly in the next, bunch of weeks. And if we don't meet till March and that's going
Sure.
in, it's gonna be sort of not, we're not gonna,
Yeah.
Mika wants us to do it, how are we gonna do it? Are we gonna do it here as this group and stay all night and start to hash out and get the zoning maps out? And
Well,
does everybody know all the zones, we can get Chris in next month and then next month, but this has to be done by shortly.
So we have to get up to speed on some of this. I mean, my first meeting, if we need to have, I guess, a special meeting to get up to speed on some of this
Right.
stuff, we may have to do that. I mean, it's,
Yeah. And
is there but do we know if they have to have their recommendations in by March?
Who's that?
You're saying TPC has to have something?
TPZ's gotta change their regs by July 1.
So if they're working toward, I guess, what is guiding what the decisions that
HB
they're working on?
8002.
From the
House Bill
state?
8002
like-
from the state is saying your zoning regulations must provide
Okay,
X.
and
So
then-
if we look at what you got, we got to start to dig in.
Right.
That's in here, and it's been alluded to in here. There's so many statutes, Public Act 2120, it's all in here.
So
And- yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, so do then we have a vision? Like, sounds like there's a lot of things to discuss that, it sounds super exciting, but, or is there a grander, like, a Mika plan that we are helping work towards, that we're trying to deliver on? Or do we need to create that? Like, what's our,
I think some
And then
some
we
of
can
these plans are
influence
there.
zoning, and then we can this,
And
right?
to your point, the plans have been discussed, 10 years, in
Yeah.
in history. But if the plan is there, but nothing's been done within those zones to help create any of this, that's where the recommendation from EDC, from these others are coming from. And to your point about July, when they were talking about this bill, came up with some of these numbers the other day, yesterday. She was given a date of 2029.
Right, that's to come up with a plan
Mm-hmm.
to produce the number that's our goal of affordable housing units that we must create. So,
But they haven't
but
even
our zoning, there are
done the
many more
assessments.
things that were in that housing bill
Mhm.
that are immediate. For instance, we have to come up with our developable land inventory in the next few months as to what we could potentially develop on. And we have to submit that so we can get our number. And then, we get our number, then we have to come up with a plan for that number. And it gets, there's a lot more detail to it. It's SCROG, and then if we don't like SCROG's plan, we have 30 days, we can go it ourselves and produce our own municipal. All those kinds of things you gotta get down in the weeds on, and everybody's talking about it and working on it. But one of the things that's also coming up right now is to change in the business district, to change our zoning to permit by right 2 to 9 units by right and you can read it in here. And talking about what we're going to do in our business district and changing our zoning. And I think you got to sort of contemplate the whole thing and look at where we're going and make sure you know what that community is doing. Before we start running down there saying, that's where we're going to do it, that's where we're going to do our affordable housing goals, that's where we're going to do, I don't know that that's the, I think it's going to require a lot more than that. But it's here, and it's, I don't know how we make recommendations with, with a, I don't have the answers. I'm just trying to have us all figure out how do we make recommendations to hit that. I think we got to realize the kind of number we got to hit, and start to really think about what that is and how do you get there. Is it assisted? Is it incentive? Is it incentive housing with set-asides? So we bring in the private market to come in and say, okay, is it 20% set aside? Well, can they build it at 20% set aside? Are you going to get there and do affordable housings? Can we do? I mean, how could you require all affordable housing, without capital stack being contributed as a grant from the state as assisted? Like, in other words, can you expect a private developer to build something that costs $600,000 but only get a cash flow of $300,000? How's he going to? She or he? How's that home builder on a 2 to 9 unit going to make that work to get affordable housing? So how is that going to happen there? And I think a working group to get us there. I don't know. I think it's economic development. I think it's zoning. It's the planning. If we're being asked to do it, but
So given all that, what should we do in the next few weeks?
I'd set up a small working committee to make a recommendation for the zoning changes. That's what I would do, or convene this body, and really start to talk about it and unravel all this and work with the planner. But
I think that would be the route to take. Let's see if we can get something scheduled with the planner, Mika, with our full board, and kind of see where we're going to your points. They just reading the information that's here, it seems there's so many unanswered questions with regards to the guidance that not just the planner has, but the towns have. That's Scrogg is saying the other day, said, well, we're trying to get an interpretation of what this means, and do you have to do X, Y, or Z in the meantime before you get to these other points? But nobody can answer it. Even the people that wrote the bill can't answer the questions.
But I think, let me not push back, but let me say Senate Bill 051 just got introduced into the short session. You want to know what Senate Bill H151 says on housing?
What?
That if you have single-family residential zone that has water and sewer, you cannot require a lot larger, are you ready? 5,000 square feet. Now, will that get out? I don't know, but it just went into committee. So if you have water and sewer, you can't have an 1.5 acre zone house. The lot can't be larger if it's a single family zone. It can't be larger than 5,000 square feet. So now you're talking 8 lots on an acre. And townhouses are the same as single families. Now, I'm not saying it's good or it's bad, but it shows you how serious
That was
we
just
have.
introduced though, right? It wasn't passed, was it?
I'm not trying to threaten or scare. What I'm trying to say is we need to plan. We need to really not, and I say this not because anybody's doing it purposely, but it's just too confusing. We have to think about how are we going to get there and really say, this is my opinion, of course, and I'm passionate about it because it became my retirement gig. But let's get there and create a community that we're proud of and we want to do that's inclusive, and that let's get inclusionary zones, not necessarily all rely on assisted, and let's create a multi-income community in our town wherever we cite it. But let's really start to get on that and do that seriously, rather than saying, well, it's not going to get out of committee, let's fight it instead. That's what a lot of towns are doing. They're fighting it instead of embracing it, and I think you end up with something better if you embrace it. And that's going to get us something better than if we fight it. And my example is when I grew up as a little boy, and I used to go to the farmer's market with the DeGennaro family. Frank was my best friend. And there was nothing there. but we fought it so much and fought building a community, and the community built itself, but we ended up with something that's going to be hard to reverse. We had somebody just suggest that we should put rental housing units in our office park on Bradley Road. How? That's impossible, right? I mean, you have to actually get rid of that office park somehow, because how are you going to build residential units, kitchens, in that building? It's going to require a complete redo, right? It's not conducive to that. So we got to this place by fighting. If we continue to fight, we're going to repeat that. We're going to repeat that. And so I think it's better off to embrace and learn what we have to do and then say, how do we get there? Do you really want all assisted, or do you want mixed income, and how do we get there? Can we do that? Can we contribute to the capital stack and create that community ourselves?
Yeah, interestingly, all we do is look to Orange. You look on Old Tavern Road and look at that shopping center that sat there for many years.
Firelight, you mean?
Hmm?
Firelight?
Yeah, yeah.
My mom worked at Wolf's Bakery there.
Okay. With very, they struggled for years for tenants there. And some would probably say, we talk about, oh geez, there's only so much land, okay? And you look at what they did there, they tore the whole shopping center down, they put retail on the bottom, and they put residents on the top. There may be those kind of opportunities that exist here in Woodbridge. I know you may not see it, but I could pick a couple spots where but it does take some developers also believing and seeing that there's a market to do that supports both, and it takes some change with the way we do it. I know in some years back there was a presentation that was made at TP&Z. It was a completely different look at being able to put in more buildings and that type of thing, and on Bradley Road and a couple of other things to really grow the grand list and that type of thing. And I was kind of half paying attention when that was presented. Probably it was 10 years ago, whatever. But look, we've got to get creative. I think we need to support what's happening with that, but I don't think that we're the driving force of what this is. We are a support element to this mission.
You mean EDC?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think we're in the front of the parade. I think we're in the parade.
We could influence
Who's in front
it.
of the parade?
What's that?
Who would be in front of the parade?
Planning.
Yeah.
TBZ's planning, town plan and zoning, they've never, but that's planning. Now, is that what that committee's good at? Or has it been just zoning matters, or is that a planning group? Has it historically been a planning group?
And
So
do we know-
I may
Yeah.
not push back, but I may say to you, well, maybe it is EDC is where the planning should come out of.
Yeah.
Because if it's more been like, we're gonna have a hearing, we're gonna approve this or not, but the zoning will build the things. And so if you say to somebody, tearing down something is gonna be really hard to get to an affordable number, and we've come up with a problem in housing, as you can see, that they're trying to lower the barriers, whether they pass or not, Terry, they're trying to lower the barriers to get higher density, smaller homes, for whether it's seniors, for starters, the whole range of housing. That would be that motivation, right, to say you could, a lot bigger than 5,000 square feet. So I think one of the things we as a town can think of is that we have some it's not the state money coming in, but we have a lot of ability to contribute to the capital stock for inclusionary and set-aside zoning. And so, for instance, if we provided infrastructure and we provided land, you could get very reduced total quantity of housing with a large set-aside, probably 40 or 50% of mixed income. If you contribute to the capital stack, the land and the sewer, right? You could probably get a 40 to 50% set aside. Rather than having to build 10 units for every one, like that inclusionary zoning on 804 Fountain, right? So to get 332, we got to build 3,320 units at a 10% set aside. That's what the market can pay to do. They can't just give it away. Or we could go set aside. Or if we wanted to play in the game, if we as a town wanted to do this and embrace it instead of fighting, we could think about contributing to that capital stack and reducing that getting that set aside up to 40 or 50. A builder could come in, yeah, I can do that. You give me the land and the sewer, right, and the path forward. I can get you there with a community that you wanted to look and feel and have a mixed income, right, but, that's my vision of talking here. And I don't know how you get it there with demolishing buildings that already exist, or taking single-family houses and saying, I'm sorry now, we're gonna change this all around for you. It has a real problem. It's 7-Eleven and the beach towels, we just didn't plan well, it's like, we didn't plan well, we fought it too much, and,
The developers of the affordable housing, I know I was, number of projects I looked at in Massachusetts where we were looking at doing some concepts when one of the developers there was doing a lot of affordable housing. And he kept talking about the grants he was going to obtain from the state for doing that. I know that the developers have to make these numbers work, but are they sharing with us the whole package versus, I'm overpaying for this property, so now I need you to allow me to put 4-story units
Well, let me
up.
give you an example of Lascana. I know the developer of that very, very well. And Lascana is a 55 unit on about 5 acres in Orange. And it helped them get to the moratorium. They got to add their earlier points from 1990. They actually picked up 3 moratoriums in Orange. When Salem Mascara-Bruno cut the ribbon with the governor, she said, this is not affordable housing. This is, it's affordable for the residents, but the cost to build that, Bob. And so if you really, it was not affordable, it was really expensive. The capital stack was huge, and the state came in and assisted that capital stack in a really large way, and it's really great to have. And it really provides opportunity and inclusion in your community. Because the AMI probably in there is 40-50%. But it wasn't really affordable housing. Those weren't my words. It was a beacon to say, this is the kinds of stuff that if we work together, we can build. And I think if we need a number that's not, the state's not gonna get us there. Our town can get us there. We have those assets if we have that commitment to building stuff that can get us, you won't even, it'll be inclusionary, it'll be mixed income, but we have to want to embrace it, because if we don't, then we're just gonna fight it and end up not getting things in the proper places and done. That's knocking it down is gonna be tough. Knocking Firelight down.
Sounds like we need maybe an understanding to define what TPZ is doing, what their goal and their plan is as a group, and our own goal. And ideally, those two goals should work to a shared plan, a shared master goal or plan. So if that exists, great. If you're saying plans have existed for years, let's see them. Let's see if we still like them. I'm simplifying it, but then this is a big fat component under it. What's the role of TPZ? What's our role? We can sit here and debate and probably all night, every night, but there's other people working, and if we're having the same conversations that another group is already having, and they are, then let's not overlap. Let's figure out how we can work collectively together to get to wherever we're trying to go. What's that?
Is this your first time in government?
Yes, yeah, maybe, but,
I hear you. I'd love to have the corporate.
my husband is an architect in town, and he's on the TPZ
He's on
commission, so
TPZ.
I've heard a lot about what's coming out of that meeting. So I'm just saying, if we want to move forward, if plans haven't moved forward for 10 years, for this years, now they are certain plans are forced to move forward. Those are going to go. Should we be influencing those? How can we influence those? And do we have where are we trying to, what are we trying to influence, and to what end? What is the end
And
in
so-
mind for Woodbridge?
Yeah, and
Our
what I'm
vision for
and
Woodbridge?
what I'm suggesting is, and as you can imagine, I've watched every single TPZ meeting for about, my wife was on TPZ for a number of years and was chairman of the housing committee.
So you're in it, yeah.
Yeah, and what is the ultimate goal? That's a really good question. And that, somebody referred to me as an elephant the other day in the room. That has to get out there so you see it, to see what we're dealing with. And then, once that's out there, it's not popular, but, around the town. But once you see what we really need to plan, I think the path becomes a little clearer rather than fighting it. And so what's our ultimate goal? We haven't talked about that. We haven't talked about how we hit an affordable housing unit goal.
And I think it's just, I don't know, but it's the affordable housing goal, which there's a lot of conversation about. Then do we also have a goal for business development? What kind of businesses? Our retention of current businesses? So, and then
So as you know,
overall.
it's transportation, people, and businesses follow. That's EDC in a nutshell. Transportation, people, businesses follow. I don't see us creating an attraction here. I don't see the soccer field, Everson. I don't see Everson as helping our grand list out. I don't see it. It may be great, maybe great soccer, but I don't see it as a grand list. Look at where our grand list is. Now, right now, we've given a big break. I say we. The assessment has given a big break to the business district, right? All our residential, the burden got pushed up onto the residential single family from the commercial. The commercial taxes went down dramatically, right? There was a homestead exemption we could have enacted to balance that out. We didn't do that. But the taxes in the business districts have been dramatically lowered. So they've not been incentivized by anything we've done, but there has been a shift. It's their turn, it's their time.
And then the question
But I don't know how much those businesses are gonna add. It's just too compact an area to say that's gonna help our grand list, and housing is economic development.
And so when that happened, that shift in taxes,
Right.
it's going to be interesting how that water balloon, now that it's been squeezed and it's now coming somewhere else, residents in town who are struggling with what they're now enduring for taxes, whether or not they'll have as much discretionary income to spend at those businesses now, okay? And does that actually hurt the business district because people have less money to spend? So, these kind of things, whenever we make these kinds of moves, it's like squeezing a water balloon. It comes out somewhere else. So, I think, and Sonia, you kind of started shifting this discussion, which I'm pleased with. Our charge can't just only be being concerned about this deadline that's coming at us with the housing, because I think we're part of the parade. I don't think we are the entire parade. We need to make sure that we're doing everything we can, all the components to help these businesses in as many ways as we possibly can, okay? And that's what I'm here for. And I know we have to support what, legally we have to from a state standpoint. We need to support it. Look, we need more affordable housing. But I think that we have to be careful at these meetings that that doesn't become 80% of our discussion, because then we're losing focus to what our charge is.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking a lot about this for a few months now, and Chad, you put together a list of what we should do.
Our goals.
And I would like to get to those at some point, because it does address what we need from the business point of view. I agree that housing is part of this as well, but I'd like to move forward with some of the other stuff that I think is also as important.
Absolutely. So those goals, now that we have everybody in place, that is going to be one of the other items that we sent out. Some of the information that we included in our budget and our description of EDC, what our goals are, what our accomplishments are, and so forth. And then compound that, we can talk about it in March and say, this is how we want to try and tackle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, several. And I think to the list that you provided to us, most of those were integrated into the information that was provided to Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. So I think we're going in the right direction.
Can we get copies of that?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
And thank you for allowing segueing out. If I could just say one thing, Bob, and I think you couldn't agree with you more, but there is a perspective that I think, while you don't want to let July 1 drive your deadline and for your overall planning, what you do there though could affect other things that you do later and how you fuel and those discussions. So that was brought up recently at the OPM's idea. It was a comparable analysis saying, well, we're only going to plan now under HB 8002 for a 5-year period, not a 10-year period. So that goal number in housing unit may be lower. But what that could do to you is if you make those concessions and say, we're not going to bite the whole planning apple right now, we're just going to take a small little slice because we're not under any pressure. But what that can happen is that you forestall making the bigger picture right and end up by focusing on a small piece. And so that was some of the comments at that OPM meeting about HB 8002, that you need to maybe think about it in a full way so you make the intermediate steps more meaningful, because you could, that's kind of been my point. So I'm, I do think there is a certain urgency to any of this planning. That's just my perspective. It's not meant as a criticism or a fight. It's meant as a another perspective.
Well intended.
Can I add something? Going back to Bob's analogy of the parade, we may not be the lead of the parade, but I think we need to be pretty damn close.
Yeah.
We're different than I think the other commission and committees in town. We don't have a very narrow objective. We're not conservation. We're not CUPOP. We're not whoever. We get to present all of the options to our Board of Selectmen. We get to integrate ideas from the other commissions. But we need to get prepared and have the mindset that we are driving the train. Bring all of these ideas to the other commissions, to the Board of Selectmen, incentivize ourselves to get to that point so we can actually start getting something done. If we're thinking we're third, fourth line in the parade, we're gonna have this conversation every week, every month.
I only reacted the way I reacted because I got the sense that we were at the very front of the parade driving the housing objective. And I just don't have that impression that that's where we're at.
Correct. We've had the housing discussions. It's part of our problem. It's part of something we can influence. It's not the only thing we're going to influence. It all of it's integrated.
But it ties to what the comments were at the New Haven Chamber from the different planners from around our region. And it tied into that they're all struggling from the same issue, that convincing folks, and they're fighting about whether housing is economic development. And they're debating that issue, and the planners, and this is not, I agree with them, but at the same time, it's not just me saying that. And so we've had a lot of people coming in about that housing can be, if well planned, can be economic development. And so, but that's a struggle, at least according to planners in the call.
Yeah, I'm not excluding housing, but as EDC, we have, I don't want to call it the vision, but the opportunity to look at the entire town and see what is available for what we need to accomplish. If we're a different commission, we may exclude parts of that town because we want it for something else. EDC does not have that.
Well, I would love to hear
Frontier.
from Shona or Sherry, who have vast, and probably Bob too as well. I don't have that marketing, idea. But can we take a very compact business district with no people? And I'm not saying we should then load it up with housing in that area. I'm very sensitive to that community and its compactness and its traffic and all that stuff that Terry's talked about. Very sensitive to that and but can we do it, Sean? Can we market that without a big influx of people to be a very vibrant business district without bringing folks into that and really changing that dramatically? And if not, are we better off thinking about a broader approach and where we do that?
So what you're saying is, can we just bring businesses to the business district, not more people?
Is that how you get more customers? I hankle, how do you get customers? But how do you get customers? Your brand. Are we a brand? Can we make a brand out of the Woodbridge Business District of 10 acres? That's currently,
This is what I'm asking, is what is the vision that we want to work towards? and housing is starting, like is the population growing? What can we sell? What is our current selling story for Woodbridge? Maybe we have that, I don't know, I'm totally new, but I'm asking, what is the vision that we want to be
We can't
selling?
build Quarry Walk in the flats, right? We all agree with that? It's got too many cost burdens with existing structures there, and lives, and families, and people, and community. We can't build Quarry Walk there. We can build Quarry Walk at the country club. I'm not saying we should. We can.
We don't have that vision, Jonah. We have a lot of ideas that you heard here that are pieces of the puzzle, but we don't have that.
We could build
Is
Quarry
that part
Walk.
of what we should be doing though? Is that, was that within our?
We have
I
to
don't-
have some idea of what we want Woodbridge, what we need Woodbridge to look like. When I say look, I use that term loosely, not physically look.
Yeah.
but
So how do we start doing that?
Well, we have to understand what Woodbridge is, right? I think as you just mentioned, like what does Woodbridge have to offer?
Yeah,
Not the flats, Woodbridge.
yeah.
I mean, the flats is limited because of the congestion.
Look at Tier 3. Establish a special development district process for large-scale residential developments or mixed-use developments with large residential components. Define eligibility, increase discretion. I think that's the idea, that if we wanted to do that, it's not, that's the planner, that's not me, that's not, all I'm saying is, what we do in the, what we call the business district right now, that's probably not aimed, I don't know, is that really aimed at our business district? Can we get in a compact, congested area with two major arterial things and two-lane bridges, to Dev 2? Can we get there with a bunch of single-family housing zones that we're gonna convert over to this higher density? I mean, not that we're going to, but we would have to. I don't know if that fits there. So where's the site? We all know where that is. It's either Fitzgerald or it's Country Club. Let's just say it like it is. I'm not saying it should be there, but that's it, right? And if you contribute those areas to the capital stack, you can get mixed income at 40 to 50%, without having to have assisted and without having to have, by being able to track that investment. It's our choice.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to something you said about Quarry Walk. And
Does everybody know Quarry Walk, by the way?
in Oxford, yeah, they've done a fabulous job developing that area. It's really a magnet to.
They built
they've got-
Lascana, by the way.
Yeah, and it's in between. It's basically split the market between Seymour and basically Southbury now, where people that live in between there, there was nothing. Interestingly, sometimes a development like that isn't necessarily has to be in your town, but it could be abutting your town and draws people to your area that supports your businesses. And I throw out some crazy ideas here. Okay, so we got the Stop and Shop Plaza. Okay, and if you've ever wondered why is it that shopping center can't fill up with tenants, okay, think about that. Does anyone know why? Okay, I'm gonna tell you the reason why. Okay, if you look at most Stop and Shop shopping centers where they control the entire shopping center, they will not allow any other tenant in the shopping center that sells anything they sell. So you end up with these, rip-rappy kind of shopping centers with the ancillary supporting stores. So there's not a large discount drugstore there. There's not all these other national name tenants.
Boy, I'm glad you're going down this
Yeah,
path.
in that center, so it doesn't become as great a shopping center draw to support the other uses in the area. Now, let's just crazy thought here. Now, this probably will never happen, okay? So we go onto the highway there and we see, A1 Toyota on the right, and then we look to the left and it's like, oh my God, okay? Other than Amity Liquors there, that whole area, and also on the road over there and the motels. Geez, what if all that got torn down and there was like a walk, similar to Oxford thing, that would actually support us. Even though we wouldn't get any tax benefit there, they would draw people to the area, and people would actually use our shops because what happens is when you leave and think about what you do on a Saturday or you go to run your errands, okay, you have a certain pattern that you follow. And if those businesses happen to be in that on your way to and on your way back to your errands, you'll probably frequent them, okay? And those businesses will benefit from those things being there. So, I mean, there's,
You know, we own 10 acres on the south side of the Marriott.
we do.
We do. But I have, as I said, I have nothing better to do than to look at zoning maps all day long and retire. But we own 10 acres
Yeah.
on the other side there where you're talking about. And we own, so take a look at that. It's, right now it's state-owned property. It's DOT and it's also part of the property where the old Quality Inn was. The Schaefer's owned that. So, huh? The 10 acres is on the south side of the Merritt.
What is it currently?
DOT's on it and one of the buildings of a hotel.
That's Woodbridge?
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought that was Haven.
So, to your point, I think we also have to think about how we do become part of the broader region.
yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I agree with you, and because you can't develop one side without the other, we're on both sides with land, and so I think that is all part of that. So, I know there's a lot of reluctance to partner with New Haven, you know, from some, you know, but I think that that is something that should also, if we're an economic development commission, to say, you're absolutely right. How do we, because we can't, anyway, you got my point.
Yeah, you can synergize. You can
You got my-
synergize
you got
with
my-
them.
Fully agree, yeah.
Yeah.
And so where do we do that? Well, that's the New Haven Chamber. That's the, you know, that's working with the New Haven people, and working with them to say, can we get into a joint municipal development authority down there to say, and put the circle wider? Will the town go for that here? You know, I don't know. And do we want to go there? I'm not, you know, I'm just trying to think.
Something I'm willing to consider.
Sure.
But
Certainly, if you go off the highway there and it didn't look like it looks like when you come off, maybe we would have a greater attraction, because some of that black eye that we have there isn't helping us, that's for sure.
so working together
Yeah.
in a
I
regional
agree.
context
Absolutely.
in that area is something we should.
I mean, this whole discussion, I mean, this evening, I think is very good. I mean, the ideas that we're, you know, going through and discussing and priorities and that type of thing is gonna help us. I mean, obviously, the three of us here are new. We're just trying to figure out how this whole thing is gonna piece together, what roles we're all gonna play in
But
it.
then rolling this down to how do we get a recommendation for that, well, it is minor, relatively minor in the scheme of things. I think it does farm, because if we haven't really talked about the zoning, we've done the beautification or the connectivity, I think is the word that's been used, is
Correct.
connectivity rather than beautification, but, you know, what are we connecting and how are we connecting it? You know, because if we're gonna do all the zoning now, are we gonna end up tearing this stuff all up? Because it can happen. I watched Yale, I worked at the university for 22 years, and I watched them pave the same street every year for 20 years. I watched for 20 years, that must have been the most expensive half acre, you know, in New Haven ever. And so we were digging up all the sidewalks we forced Toll Brothers to put in, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's just economic waste. It's not our money, but it's economic waste that could have been put somewhere else. All I'm suggesting is, if we come up with something different, are these multimodals gonna work with the new zoning? I don't know where, you know, what was contemplated. And so that, you know, is it time to put the brakes on that a little bit, or to make sure that the zoning is gonna work with that?
I think
That-
it kind of makes sense, since there's like a lot of unknowns, and obviously we're new, and there's been some studies, there's obviously the plan of development that's out there. Maybe to have at one of our upcoming meetings, the chair from TPZ, the town planner, and then Tony Genovese to come, because he could also talk to the status of where we're at in some of these projects that we've already, you know, applied and received the grants, and we're at certain milestones. And I think you guys might not have been privy to some of it that is really relevant, because they're already in the works. So
And, you know, there's
I think
something
spinning
that-
our wheels, but like there's other pieces that we should all be on the same page.
There's something I want to throw out there, and I'm really, you know, could open my mouth and reveal my ignorance, but from an environmental standpoint, and you would know, I haven't seen the environmental reports that were issued, and I don't know how they came out. But Connecticut's moved to a release-based statutes for environmental cleanups. And that's gonna produce a lot more cleanups on that. And so when we start digging up in those areas in the commercial district, when there's an awful lot down there, one of the things they came up with when they did this release space, because there's gonna be a lot more costs of cleanups, they came up with some new criteria for when you have to clean something up. And one of those was managed real estate. So in other words, you don't have to clean up as much when you do managed real estate. So the 2 to 9 units are probably not managed real estate, right? That's gonna be Scott Hunter owning a 3-family, right? Or a 4-family or a 5-family. That's gonna be Scott Hunter owning that. It's not managed real estate. But if it's dirty and you're managed real estate, well, then you'll have somebody actually running the property to make sure that those gardens beds are elevated, to make sure that the, you know what I'm saying. So it's just something crazy to think about, though, that when we are doing this, there also could end up being situations where that moves what that property can be used for when you start that project. And so, what it may be advantageous to, you could find out as managed real estate down there. Because if it's environmentally, if there's a lot of stuff that has to be done, and the standards may be much easier for somebody that's gonna do managed real estate than is gonna be somebody that's gonna do 2 to 9 units. I just throw it out there for that awareness of when we start digging, when we start playing in the dirt down in the business district. If we play in the dirt, we know it's a country club. If we play in Fitzgerald, we know it's been a farm for, not farmed, if we're playing in that dirt, we know we're not gonna be constrained to the type of the development based on the environmental site characteristics. So it's just something also to think about when you go down there and put this LoCIP on top of the zoning. Oh yeah, I want 2 to 9, but then 2 to 9 may not be able to do it because it's gonna be too cost prohibitive if there's been releases down there. Just saying it, sorry, but that's why I think it needs a working group.
I'll send you the, somewhere I have to look back, but those reports that were passed along with those environmentals, we have them, so could certainly send it so you can take a look, just for everybody's sake. We've got that as well. Couple other things. Everybody should have, perhaps you have not yet, but there was an email sent out from the town clerk about a meeting that's going to be held on Thursday, February 26th at 6:30 at the Center Caf. It's going to be led by the town attorney. He's going to discuss, it's about 1.5 hours or so, including information about meeting guidelines, practical tips about regular, special, emergency meetings, filing notices, joint meetings, to some of the points that have been made, bringing in different folks from different commissions and boards, subcommittees, agendas, and so forth. So I think it's something that's important. If you didn't get the email, certainly happy to forward that. That went to every member of boards and commissions, Sony?
Yes, every board, commission, and committee in the town.
Great.
Oh, and Cliff, you might want to mention, or Shadi, you might want to, to our new members, we've all gone to, we only conduct, or you're going to do it?
Yeah, I got next notice. We, the town asked us to have an email address that was specific to our work for EDC. Mine is clynch@woodbridgeedc@gmail.com. The rest of us pretty much have the same. We'll send something out to you just so we can all get on the same page on that. And we're not using our personal emails for any kind of correspondence for this, but I think that part of this information that Nick is going to give us will give some further information about the rules. Some of the, also Robert's Rules of Order, freedom of information, and that's where all this is coming from with this request for same kind of
So
email
it's
address.
our own a Gmail account, or is there a town email
No, it's not the town. So you would have your own Gmail account specific to work
Just-
for EDC.
Okay,
So instead of sending bobhill@gmail.com, it would be, let's say, rhillwoodbridgeedc@gmail.com, or whatever the case is. We'll
Yeah.
send
Mine's
some
rbordeauxwoodbridgeedc@gmail.com.
okay.
And that way we comply with their request. Okay. Moving on to number 8, new business update. There's a couple different businesses, professional businesses that are moving into town in the professional buildings along Amity Road. We all know that the bagel shop has opened up. Tony has spoken with them, and so has I. The owner, Mike, they're going to be in touch with us with regards to scheduling some type of a grand opening in the near future. But I think so far so good with the reception that they're getting from folks
You were
in
the
town.
first customer, weren't you?
I sure was.
Yes, you were. Congratulations.
Worked out well.
What were you there,
Sure was.
6:01?
I was there, I didn't realize what time it was when I left the house, and I was there at 5:57, and I had to wait until 6:01 before we were able to get in.
Yeah, you beat me by an hour.
They had nothing out, like they
Yeah.
weren't ready, they weren't ready for that 6 o'clock opening. But they got there, and, I think it's a great addition to town.
I've had a number of business meetings there already. It's kind of nice because they've got a lot of nice seating on the side there.
Yeah.
You go to and you meet at Starbucks, it's a little tight in there sometimes.
Yeah.
And, it's worked out well, and they're very nice, and the product is good,
Mhm.
and so they're very friendly too. So I hope they do well.
Tony continues to send information to Barry Cohen at the chamber for any of these businesses that are either expressing interest in joining or just information about folks that are coming into town, or again, moving their business from either a home base to a brick and mortar. Okay. Any questions there?
Can I just add something?
Sure.
So one business that will be opening, which I just ran into, where like when people come into town, they ask about specific information. I just always try to uncover why. And so I'm excited about this. It's going to be called West Rock Vintage. And it's opening up right in the professional buildings in one of the little suites there. Right now she's doing the landlord is doing some construction for her to get ready to set up her spot. So be on the lookout for that.
What kind of business?
Yeah, what'd she do?
It's
Vintage
a
clothing?
vintage.
Clothing?
I think she said a mix of different things, like some things in more art and some funky
Okay.
little pieces, and I think some clothing. I'm not really
Okay.
quite sure.
But a
And
shop.
the owner there is Deanna Birdsong, and she lives in town as well. So I'm very excited for her and for that shop to open.
Was she the same person that used to have the shop in Hamden?
She didn't indicate
I
that.
think she used to have a shop there. It was kind of a vintage kind of shop. I think I remember the name.
Yeah. So that's kind of fun.
So what's the timing? Does she?
Last I spoke with her, which is probably like last month, she said it was going to be renovations were going a little slower. But the landlord was doing them for her, so she was really happy. And she's probably going to do a really soft opening at first while some of the things are still happening. So she didn't say a timing, but I would say within the next month or two, it sounded like, but I'll reach back out to her. She was very sweet and very excited about coming into the community. And also, I wanted to mention that Green Health Collective, I don't know if anybody knows that business, again in the professional buildings. They opened up about a year ago. I had stopped by just to say hello, and I think I was doing something for 2030 probably.
Okay.
And she just joined the Amity Chamber. So I don't know if you saw that email
I did.
from Barry about that. And there was one more business. Oh, I don't know if anybody saw where the New England Brewery used to be, like there, where they used to initially. Right across from 10 Selden. There's a company there that I forgot the name of it, but we thought it was some type of, Mika had mentioned it at the last meeting, like some type of electric bike.
Scooters.
Scooters, yeah. So I ended up reaching out to them. I saw their number on the board, and it's interesting. only do repairs at that site. So it's a site reserved just to do repairs, but their business model is having those scooters through like more city-oriented types of place. Like they did something in Hartford, so now that's for New Haven. And I understand that they said they're excited about coming to Woodbridge, but I'm not really certain how that would, I think they're focusing on New Haven right now, but who knows?
Quite a few of those scooters in the neighborhood where our business is are under the piles of snow because the city had nowhere to put them and they just went right up onto the sidewalks and they got buried.
Yeah, those people will be coming to get their scooters
Yeah.
fixed.
Now they're
they
ice
go for a
cubes.
bagel.
Now they're in ice cubes.
Yeah, so rather interesting.
Going into the Citizens Bank, that's good.
Still no solid answer on that one.
But it's corporate, right? Like offices or something?
Offices, correct.
And no word about what's the old social?
Nothing yet.
Nothing on that either.
I thought for a minute that we were going to have our first public comment when
Yeah.
that lady came in, but obviously not.
She changed her mind.
So, number 9, public comment. Public comment? No? Okay, moving on. Our next meeting is going to be Thursday, March 12th, 6 o'clock. And that's about it. We would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Rich?
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor?
All right.
Thank you very much.